Yeah, good morning. Can any one of you or will any one of you start off with a quick overview of our discussions on resources and SWOT analysis? Okay, please.
Um, Hello, sir.
Yes,
So
hi.
we did some SWOT analysis to find out why we want to do,
Okay,
find out the answer why we want to do. In the x-axis, there are weakness and strength, which is
yes,
related to the person
yes.
of the organization, and on the
Person or
y-axis,
the
there are
department or the organization itself, or even
yeah,
the country. I mean, I presume Rishabh and friends, we can even do a SWOT analysis for India, right?
yeah,
Yeah,
for
okay.
anything.
Go ahead, go ahead. Yeah,
And in the y-axis, there are opportunities and threats which are
yes,
related to the environment.
very good.
Uh, so then we talk about strength, capabilities, and ability.
Yes.
Uh, s- and strength can be both ways, like physical and or mental
Yeah.
strength.
Rishabh, there are
So
three terms we used: ability, capability, capacity.
okay, sir.
Yeah,
Capacity.
please note all the three are important, Rishabh. Yeah, go ahead. Good.
Yes, sir.
Yeah,
Then
continue. Mm.
then we talk about like for the startups, networks and relationships are more important. mm, Networks and relationship and financial resources are more critical
Mhm.
than the other resources.
Yeah,
Um, then we talk about some like cooperating competitors or
mm,
and subcontracting maintenance, like
mhm.
why it is useful, and other.
Correct,
And then we a little talk about that authority can be delegated, but responsibility cannot be
cannot be. Correct,
delegated. Yes, sir.
correct. Absolutely. That's a good summary. Just wanted to augment what you have shared now. Um, I had also discussed yesterday about how do we go about evaluating our strengths, correct? Whether it's human or financial or technology, infrastructure and materials, or organizational and managerial, or networks and relationships. I hope you recall that. How do you go about evaluating your strength or the area for improvement, correct? It was in that context we talked of many of the other situations and examples. Okay? Hello?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So that is very, very important. And the examples I had given regarding co-opetition and the startups, etc., is to basically focus on the idea of value. See, the idea of value addition is central to an organization. I would even say that is the most abstract purpose of existence of an organization. It cuts across all organizations. Now, whether they are public sector or private sector or NGOs, trust societies, Section 8 companies, cooperatives, farmer producer organizations, there are various types of legal organizations. For all of them, including government, value addition is the name of the game. All of us in life, I mean, we benefit by adding value to others. And that's how value is also added to us. Of course, we also do things to add value to ourselves, like our food habits, sleep habits, nutrition, rest, so many things contribute to our own development of existential value. Okay. You may recall our discussions on the dimensions of value. So do not forget, whatever we do, the ultimate foundation is value addition. Okay. So whenever you're talking of a startup or any other situation, as we discussed yesterday, you have to look at that value addition, and it is in that context that people explore opportunities outside. They know they have some strengths and they explore opportunities. Let me share with you a very fine example that struck me a little later yesterday after the class. So I was planning to share that with you in the next, let's say, 2 or 3 minutes. Uh, if you take the case of cool beverages, which are the biggest brands that you can name? Cool or cold beverages or
Coca-Cola,
drinks?
Pepsi.
Coca-Cola and Pepsi. Any other brands come to your mind?
Amul.
Very good. Amul. Any other?
Red Bull.
Pardon?
Red Bull.
Okay, good. You have gone into those special drinks, you know, Red Bull and Charge and all that stuff. Interesting. But suppose I name a particular brand, please respond whether you're aware of the brand. Okay. Paper boat.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Are all of you aware of paper boat?
Yes, sir.
Good. Do you agree it seems to be a fairly successful brand? You can check it out.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
At least
Yes,
I have
sir.
traveled a lot inside the country, and I have seen in many airports, you will have the vendor selling paper boat. Okay, and it's quite popular. What do you think is the fundamental difference between the drinks in paper boat and the others that you named? Have you been able to identify a basic difference? Because I'm talking
Fruit
about
flavor.
exploiting or leveraging opportunities. Yeah, go ahead.
Sir, fruit flavors.
Okay, come on. That way, even Coke and Pepsi have those mango and orange flavors and lime flavors.
Paper boat is packaged differently. It
Okay,
stands
that's
out.
visible. That's correct. That's visible. I agree. But something that goes with the experience of drinking paper boat, the drink itself. What do you think is fundamentally different in paper boat? By the way, you guys must have had it.
Pepsi, Coca-Cola has some side effects, while paper boat do not have any side effects.
Okay, we don't know about that. Well, maybe you're right, but I don't know about that. Okay, I'll tell you something. Can you recall the specific products that paper boat produces and sells? In the beverage form.
Not specifically, sir. Juices.
Okay, I'll tell you something. Have you come across Rus in paper boat?
Yes, sir.
Chili guava?
Yes, sir.
Anything else?
There is a green apple, I think, as well.
Kokum fruit, popular in Maharashtra, I think. You check all this, and in fact,
Ampanna.
you'll be surprised. I mean, they even had something to do with tamarind, if I'm not mistaken. Okay, if I'm not mistaken. And I recall a time when they were even selling packaged rasam, very popular in Tamil Nadu and even Karnataka and Kerala, etc., and Andhra. In the southern states, rasam is fairly popular. Okay, I don't think they have continued with that. Doesn't seem so, but they have even packaged rasam. So many Indianized drinks were being made by them and sold in the market. Okay. Now, after I stated this, are you able to understand how the promoters of paperboard would have identified this niche, or what you call as unmet market, a totally new market, because those drinks were not available before? Are you able to understand that? Of course, anar and other stuff, musambi, santra, etc., I think we get in Minute Maid and we get in Real and Tropicana, etc. So those are brands associated with these companies, you know, the big companies. But I'm not talking of that. I'm talking of how these people entered very interestingly with very Indianized drinks, you know. And even what is that famous drink you get in summer, Thandai? In summer we get that, no, in the north, Thandai. So they were even selling Thandai. Now you tell me which other company sells Thandai, Rasam, Kokam, Panna, and all this stuff, isn't it? So there's something very interesting about the way, or chili guava, which our mothers used to make when we were young at home. So these are very interesting. I won't be surprised if Paperboat also sold Panakam, you know. So there are very they even sold, and of course Amul also sells the buttermilk brand, you know, what I don't recall the name. They sell that buttermilk brand also. Okay, they give a different kind of spiced buttermilk, and that's very famous in India. You go to any state government milk producer, they also sell their buttermilk brands. And personally, I've really loved the buttermilk in both Kerala and Karnataka. Very well spiced, and it's very tasty also. So this is an example of how promoters of a company, founders of a company, are able to spot an opportunity in an existing, what do you say, a very large potential market. I'll use the word potential market, and then they find a space where there are where they play differently. It's almost like saying, okay, you big guys are playing in this stadium. This stadium is not for me, because I don't think I'll succeed in this stadium where Coke and Pepsi are playing. I'm a small player, so I will find another stadium and I'll have my audience come there. You know, that is talks of how opportunities are leveraged. Okay, one may say, sir, but Paperboat is not as successful and as Coke and Pepsi. Success is graded. It is graded. You can have different degrees of success. At least I get the feeling, I haven't looked at the financials, etc., but I get the feeling they don't look like a failed company by any yardstick. You know, and they have their market. They definitely have their market, and very interesting also. Okay, so I hope you understood the idea of the notion of opportunities with this example. Can I be
Yeah.
confident that you have caught that point of opportunities?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Good. Okay. It also ties up with threats. That means the founders and promoters of Paperboat were able to identify that if they start operating in the regular markets, the big ones will be their major threats. Not only threats, perhaps they would have been overwhelmed. I mean, there are many interesting things that have happened in India. You know, I think all of you recall the Jallikattu protest in Chennai a few years ago. Okay, you may recall when literally thousands and thousands of people, what you call a self-organized system, you know, they converged into the Marina Sands, the Marina Beach. You would have probably seen the news on that, you know, when there was a ban on Jallikattu, because
Yes,
people
sir.
felt that
Yes, sir.
something about their heritage and tradition was being affected. Well, that's a debate. I need not get into the debate of whether there was cruelty to the bulls and whether the game itself was an ethical game or sport, etc. I'm not getting into that. That's a different point. I'm just trying to share with you a particular incident. Around that time, people started breaking Coke and Pepsi bottles and wanted to promote a Tamil Nadu drink. You know, there's a company called Kali Mark, and they were producing cola. You know, I think they have their own brands of cola. I remember the
Bovonto, sir.
Vibro and Manohar. You must be knowing what are their drinks called, right?
Bovonto, sir. Bovonto.
Bovonto. Thank you. Suddenly I didn't get the name. It's a very tasty cola. It sort of resembles. It gives a grape, a kind of a feeling, you know. And I've also enjoyed Bovonto. Of course, I don't drink too much because of the sugar content. I'm diabetic. Obviously, I can't freak out on those drinks. Maybe once in a while I can play the cheat drink, you know. But I'm just telling you how that kind of a thing can also happen. There is a totally external phenomenon to the company. I don't believe that Kalimar could have anticipated that, or as some people started sharing, maybe they also promoted that thought during that time. So I'm not getting into that. But even those kinds of phenomena lead to threats to the biggies. I'm sure you agree, for some time, Coca-Cola and Pepsi would have been a little worried. What's this? Tamil Nadu is a big market, and these guys suddenly bringing in a value system, saying that we don't want these drinks and we'll go with only what's manufactured in Tamil Nadu. So you have all these funny situations happening, you know, and it's important for business people, leaders and managers, to keep a lookout for such opportunities also and leverage those opportunities. So I've used the right term. Yesterday we discussed this. companies leverage their strengths and leverage the opportunities. Okay. There is one last part I wish to share with you. I'm just reconstructing that 4-box representation. Okay, this is weaknesses, strengths, threats, and opportunities. Okay, I'm just using the short form WSTO. Now, this matrix very often, commonly, typically referred to as the TOWS matrix, TOWS, and this is one of the inputs in strategy formulation, in companies. Remember, I'm trying to give you an overview of the subject of management without taking you deep into any particular topic, which we cannot afford in this course. Because it is the only course in management you guys are doing in your MTech clinical engineering, I thought this kind of an overview will help you. So you'll find a stronger slant towards the management content in this course, okay, compared to the maintenance engineering content, which anyway you're going to do in many other courses. I hope that is appreciated, okay. So we will do this. Now, how do I use this matrix? Okay. I have just shared with you that where we are strong and opportunities exist, you exploit. Leverage. I've used the word exploit in a positive sense. Very often exploitation is seen with a negative connotation. Okay, so I'm not giving it a negative color. It's a neutral word. Okay, it's like the word technology is a neutral word, but sometimes it has associated undesirable meanings also. So we're not getting into that kind of a debate now. I'm using it in a neutral sense and in a positive sense here. Rather than say neutral, I would say it's in a positive sense. Where you are strong and there are threats, okay, where you are strong and where you have threats, you sort of engage. Why engage? The threats are there, but you know you're strong, okay, so you engage. It's competitive. It's like what's happening in our IPL. Every team knows its strengths and it engages with the opposition. Well, there is an order that happens, but that's okay. That's a part of the competition. Okay, so you engage with the threats because you know you're strong. So the logic is correct. Where we are weak and there are opportunities, we explore. Okay, we explore the opportunities, and while we are trying to get away from our limitations or weaknesses, you slowly start building your strengths. Maybe it will consist of team building also, especially in the context of startups. The promoters cannot be strong in every area. Come on, that may not be possible. So they have to build their teams gradually and grow their strengths, but they cite an opportunity. Okay, there are very beautiful examples of this in the world of startups. How the promoters come with a particular background and they have very good knowledge of the context of the domain in which the business is launched, but at the same time they realize that they need a lot of other strengths like legal strengths or sometimes marketing strengths and human resource management strengths, etc. So you have all these things happening there. Okay, so explore the opportunities, and then of course where we are weak and there are threats, there you escape. I mean, I'm sure you agree, it's very easy to remember for you. Okay, you just escape from that place because you might get mauled or completely smothered, if you start working in that space. So this is a simple kind of a representation, a visual representation that gives you some guidelines for strategy formulation. Now, how you exactly do the exploitation or do the engagement is a different ball game. There you dive into the details of the space or the domain in which the company is working. Is this clear to you, please?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So this sort of gives us an overview of the SWOT analysis and how it can be used in the management by design. State what you want to do, why you want to do, and how you want to do. This sort of partially answers how, whether you exploit, whether you engage, whether you explore or you escape. Partially it answers. Okay. The subject of strategic management broadly comes in under that question. How do I want to do what I want to do? Okay. And the SWOT analysis provides the foundation. Why I want to do? Because I'm strong and there's an opportunity. So I want to exploit that opportunity. Okay. So that gives the justification for the company. Now you know the connection. I'm sure you can easily establish the connection between the SWOT analysis, the strengths and the opportunities and so on, and the mission, vision, objectives and goals. I hope that conceptual connection is clear in your minds. Can I be confident that you are able to understand that conceptual connection between the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities and threats and your mission, vision statements?
Yes, sir.
Because what are the components of the mission statement? Please recall 4 components. Yeah.
So the basic activities
Yes,
that will be
basic
performed,
activities,
manner of performance,
manner of performance,
then stakeholders and
stakeholders,
expected outcomes
expected outcomes. Perfect. Right? So do you agree the basic activities are elaborations of this exploit or engage, depending on the situation?
Yes, sir.
Because the basic activities have to flow from your strengths, correct?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So I think you've got this idea of SWOT analysis also. Okay. How do you work with the SWOT analysis? Okay. Now this part is clear. State what you want to do, why you want to do, how you want to do. That is step number 1 in management by design. Step number 2 is identify and mobilize resources. Once you are clear about why you are doing something and what you are going to do and also how, then the implementation of that first step is using your resources. We have already had a discussion on the resources. So you identify resources and mobilize the resources. What is mobilization? I think all of you understand what's meant by identification. Now this, while it is easier said, it's difficult in practice because identification of resources involves a lot of depth of specification concerning the capacity and the capabilities of the resources. Here I didn't use the word ability because I've already explained to you what is ability. What did you understand by the word ability from our discussions yesterday?
Sir, it is binary, like
Correct. Correct. Yeah,
able
go
to do or
ahead.
not able to, able to do
Either
or not
somebody
able
is
to.
able to do it or not able to do it. Correct?
Yes, sir. Yes,
Yeah.
sir.
So do I
Yes, sir.
have the ability to cook? I'll say, sorry, not today. I don't know how to cook. The only thing I can make is I can toast bread because there is a machine, or I can make an omelette, or I can put some noodles in water and cook. I don't know any other cooking. In fact, one of the funniest things I did was when I was alone for a few days here in my quarters in IIT Madras, I said, okay, let me experiment with cooking. I just took the pressure cooker, put a little water, and we have something called anjara petti in our kitchens, where we have many condiments. I just took a little bit of all that using my intuition, put it and cut some vegetables, and of course cleaned and cut and put them in and steamed them, and I had vegetable salad. That's the only cooking I know. I mean, I was that stupid in cooking. Okay, but ability, no, I don't have the ability. Okay, so for example, there are certain people who are blind to certain aspects of their work. So you ask them, do you have this ability? For example, you can ask me, do I have the ability to program in C++? I'll say 0. I don't know. The only thing I know is there's a software, programming language called C++. So please understand, that's why straight away went into capabilities and capacity. Okay, capacity is a very important word in management, because you come into the subject of, in operations management, we will see this shortly, we come into the subject of capacity planning. And please, that term capacity planning is also applicable to the maintenance function. We did discuss the example. So what if you have only two crew? In your maintenance crew, you have only two people. Say one is an electrician, the other is a mechanic. You don't have anybody else, let's say. Now, obviously, if you have only two people, given the size of a plant and the number of machines and equipment and devices and instruments that may be there in the plant, these two people will only provide a certain capacity of the maintenance function, both planned and unplanned. Unplanned is breakdown, major repairs, etc., or faulty functioning of the machine, where you may or may not shut down in performing the maintenance. Correct? So capacity becomes important, capabilities become important. Okay, so that is the engagement in terms of the maintenance function that we are doing. Okay, so I was talking of the SWOT analysis, the connection with the mission, vision, objectives and goals, and then we are slowly moving into the other aspects of management by design. Okay, identify resources. I talked of all these things only to help you understand what goes into identification of resources. You have to be very deep in your knowledge of the resources so that you specify that these are the resources that we want. I'll give you another example so that you're convinced about this. When we want to recruit faculty members into my department, we have department faculty meetings. There are a lot of arguments and sometimes heated arguments also, because people would like to assert that they are conceptually correct. Okay, and other party would also like to assert the same assertion, but that's okay. That's a part of the game of being a faculty member. Okay, so we sort of discuss about what should be the specifications of the applicant for the application to be eligible. Now, we are not talking of the eligibility criteria placed in the advertisement by the institute. The institute will place an advertisement saying assistant professor, so many years, I mean, must have a PhD, must have at least 3 years of teaching and or equivalent experience, blah, blah, all that stuff is there, either before the PhD or after the PhD. I mean, they can state that, depends on the institute, how they want to take. Obviously, there can be a difference between the eligibility criteria stated by private institutions and public institutions like IIT. We are not getting into that aspect. Just wanted you to understand the difference. But we specify. And then institute will have some norms a little beyond the advertisement norms. Advertisement norms are public norms which follow MHRD, say, guidelines or rules, saying that this is what our pay commission, sometimes the pay commissions will say. I mean, you have to combine all that information. Okay, I'll put it that way. The pay commission may not state that this should be the experience, etc. The institutions, the MHRD would state that. Okay, and the institutions will have slightly tighter norms beyond the eligibility norms. What are they saying essentially? They're saying anybody who fulfills the eligibility criteria, the specifications is placed in the advertisement, they can apply, and the application is valid. So we will begin scrutinizing the application. But then the institute will have tighter norms. The institute will say, we will go beyond this and send it to the departments for further scrutiny only if the institute norms are met. I'm just giving you an example. Okay, so there'll be some academic administrative office or something where they'll scrutinize the applications whether they fulfill the institute norms over and above the advertised norms. And then the applications are sent to the departments, where the department will have even tighter norms. For example, we might say, if somebody is applying for the position of professor, we might say we need at least a minimum of 5 publications in the last 3 years and 5 publications in journals of this category. We may even say we want 5 publications in journals which are rated at least A star, A or B by the Australian Business Deans Council or by the Association of Business Schools and so on. or we will say they must be published in journals with a site score of more than greater than or equal to some number, or an impact factor greater than or equal to some number. Are you understanding? That level of depth of specification goes into identification of resources. Now you can understand in a factory, just apply what I told you in the academic context now. If you want to buy a particular instrument, for example, a vibration measurement instrument, would you agree that there will be a lot of specific technical specifications for that instrument? Okay. So you have to be very careful with the word identify. It's not a very soft word. I mean, it looks very simple. It's not, because you have to be very good in your technical knowledge. Even when you want to buy lubricants, remember, lubricants are material resources for you. You'll have to specify for which application, which lubricant, and you'll find that there are many standards for lubricants available. So you can't just say, bring me lubricant. It's not like you're putting coconut oil or whatever oil in some of your parts, in your mechanical parts at home, in some simple things, in some simple kitchen devices. Here it is technical, because you have to talk of viscosity, you have to talk of temperature stability and so on. There's so many properties. I hope you have understood the term identify. Have you?
Yes, sir.
Good.
Yes,
So
sir.
remember, you have to be technically superior. You have to be very good. Then mobilize. What is the meaning of mobilize? Mobilize means gaining or getting the resources into your control, or access and control. That's called, I have mobilized the resources. They are available with me. Okay. So for example, when you're conducting a marriage in a family, many resources concerning the marriage have to be mobilized. Flowers, chandan, the Mangal Sutra, the priest, isn't it? You have to mobilize, and many other things, including the food that you would like to serve, the provisions, etc. You have to mobilize all those resources to ensure that the wedding is a very successfully conducted one. So mobilization means you have arranged for and gained access to and have a hold control over those resources, which you would have identified. Today it's a different bargain altogether. Today, of course, you have agencies that conduct marriages. You have small organizations that conduct marriages. I'm giving you all these examples because it's a very fascinating word. I still recall, I was in Mumbai airport maybe about a year ago or a little more, and I was standing in the line to have my my bag x-rayed and sent in. Okay. Mumbai airport sometimes has long queues in the evening, 6 o'clock, 6:30, the queues are very long. And by sheer coincidence, there was a gentleman standing in front of me talking over the mobile phone, and obviously I didn't want to overhear, but he was talking loud enough, and I don't know why he did that, but people could hear, and this guy was telling, he was just in front of me, and within about 15-20 seconds, I could make out that this guy was a person who managed weddings, so he's a wedding contractor, I want to put it that way. And something shocked me, so in his conversation, he was asking, oh, wow, so what's the budget like? So the other party must have told him something, and this guy responds, oh, no, I don't operate at that range. My minimum budget is 5 crores. Now what the hell? I said, I mean, what's this guy talking about? In fact, I started wondering, why am I a professor? Why can't I do something like this with all my project management skills? After all, conducting a wedding is a very good example of a project. Of course, that was in a lighter vein. So it's just to tell you what all happens in these spaces. Anyway, that was just a small digression. So identify and mobilize resources. Are you clear about mobilization?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Arranging, accessing, controlling. 3 words. Arranging for, accessing, and controlling. That constitutes mobilization of resources. That's step 2 in management by design. Then step 3, allocate and deploy resources. Okay, allocate and deploy resources. Now, why do we have to allocate resources? I've already answered you. Can anybody recall? Why is allocation needed in management by design? Allocation of
We have
resources.
limited resource.
Pardon?
So we have limited resource.
Absolutely, Mohan Raj. Because you will have limited resources and you will have many tasks to be performed, sometimes concurrently or parallelly. So suppose you have some 12 tasks to perform parallelly and they call for a common resource, there is no way you are going to have those resource, that common resource allocated if it's limited, unless you have, I mean, minimally 12 units of that resource to do the job for all the 12 tasks. Multiplicity or redundancy of resources, we may not have that luxury. So allocation has to be done. Now, can you reason what conceptual strength you need to do a correct or an acceptable allocation of resources to tasks? Sometimes it's called the assignment problem in operations research. You assign resources to tasks using some guiding principles and optimization rules. What do you need to be done in allocation? What conceptual strength do you need to allocate correctly?
Sir, opportunity
Pardon?
opportunity cost.
A very good thinking, Rishabh. Yes, opportunity cost. Anything else? Of course, please understand, sometimes opportunity cost is difficult to work out numerically. As a concept, it's very good, but sometimes it's quite difficult to work it out numerically. You may have to do a lot of qualitative thinking. Unlike costing as a subject, so suppose I want to find out what is the cost of this pen, I can sort of work out a very good method for costing this pen. Material cost, labor cost, overheads, and so on, and then I can do all this stuff, allocation, apportionment of costs, etc. I can do all that and get at a good estimate of the cost of the pen, and then I add my margin and sell it in the market to my dealer distributors, who will further sell it to the final customers, retailers. Retailers who sell it to the final customers. Yeah, other than opportunity cost, anything, please?
Project time.
Yeah?
So
Yeah,
project time.
project time, very good. That's not a bad one. Okay. How do you judge among these 12 tasks, which are the tasks that require that particular resource on a high priority? So Ariman's answer was definitely correct. It also reflects Rishabh's answer, the opportunity cost, but qualitative. So you have to judge how vital, essential, or desirable is a resource for that task at that time of execution of the task. Okay. So there's something called timing. You have to find out at that particular time and over a certain period of time or a duration of time, you need that resource. Otherwise, your entire set of tasks or the project will get affected badly, suffer serious delays. Okay. So that becomes very important. Are we clear? So allocation involves prioritization. So the conceptual strength that you should possess is prioritization. Prioritization of resource allocation to specific tasks. Prioritizing the tasks for resource allocation. And you can also prioritize resources for allocation to tasks. That's also possible. Okay. So prioritization involves a certain amount of judgment and decision making skills. How do you prioritize? And there are some interesting tools. One of the what I will call as one of the tools that people seem to be using is called analytic hierarchy process, AHP. for prioritization. Okay. But if you ask me personally, while it's definitely a very interesting and useful tool, I personally don't think I would advise you not to go beyond simple ordinal weighted ranks. You don't need more than that. Okay. You can have some simple weighted ranks method. You can just rank order the tasks or the resources by your judgment. After all, you are expert enough in that in the context of those tasks. Like we say, you don't need a bulldozer to move a pebble, right? AHP is that proverbial bulldozer. You don't need it to move a pebble, which is very simple. AHP will be useful in some other context. Okay, certainly, yes, not for these kind of things. At least in my experience, that's what I've seen. Okay, I may be wrong, but that's my experience. Okay, so good prioritization. Which is top priority? Which is next? Which is next? It's a rank order. Okay, and if you have two same rank orders, well, there's a simple rule: the toss of a coin will suffice. Even some good thinkers have said this. When you're indifferent to two or more alternatives, you might as well throw the dice or toss a coin and say which one do you want to take. Okay, it is like that. Then deployment. Third step is in management by design is allocate and deploy resources. What do you understand by the word deployment? Anyone?
Employ or use.
Slightly, okay, you're going into the word employment. Deployment has a subtle meaning. Anybody else? Any good guess or good reasoning? What do you think is meant by the word deployment? I deploy a resource.
The resource was already available and
Correct.
we are now
Correct.
using it.
Putting the resource to use. Correct. Putting the resource to use is deployment. Okay. I hope you understand now. Employment is a larger context, especially when you come to human resources. Employment means you have employed somebody, which means you can give them some responsibilities. Deployment means you have given them a specific responsibility. I hope you got the subtle difference, okay, between employment and deployment. Okay. Of course, colloquially people use the word, I've employed this person for this task. That's okay. You don't need to split hairs. I just wanted to bring that subtle difference. Employment has a longer connotation, longer time. Deployment is specific. Employment is general. Okay. So that subtle difference is there. So deploy the resources. For what? For value addition. So let's run through these 3 steps. State what you want to do, why you want to do, how you want to do. 3 steps in management by design. First step I just stated. Second step, identify and mobilize resources. I discussed with you what goes into identification, the technical specifications, etc., where you have to have technical knowledge, a good depth of understanding, and identify and mobilize resources. I explained what is mobilization. Okay. Then step 3 is allocate and deploy resources. Allocation is needed because you have limited resources. So you necessarily have to prioritize resources, task, relationships. You have to prioritize them. And then you send the resource, deployment. Now, I would like you to quickly observe that in step 2, identification, and step 3, allocation, these 2 are mind-involved tasks. They involve your mind and knowledge and intelligence and experience, your judgment. Whereas mobilization and deployment are physical in nature. Right? Every word has a conceptual meaning behind it. I'm not going into that. But they involve physical actions. And you may ask, sir, does it mean allocation and identification do not involve physical actions? Yeah, come on. Ultimately, everything happens in the brain. You can say that the brain is physical, therefore physical action. Come on. I'm not getting into that logic. It's fundamentally something you can do with paper and pen. So there is physical action, but they are conceptual. In comparison, allocation and deployment involve a lot of physical action involving the resources. And as I told you, no, arrange, access and what?
Control.
Arrange, access and
Control.
control. Hey, just now I told you, shouldn't take so much time. Quickly you must be able to respond. Arrange, access and control, that's mobilization. Deployment is sending. Now, can you recall any time when you actually deployed a resource for something? I'm sure this would have happened many times in our lives, even in your young lives so far, where you have actually deployed a resource, but kuch nahi ho raha hai, nothing is happening. Can you recall? Any instance? I already told you, nothing like understanding through examples, very strong. Not able to recall even a single example where you have deployed a resource and it's not happening? Anytime you've asked somebody to do a particular task for you and they didn't do it, you can give a general example, you don't need to name anybody. I've already given you a clue. Okay, so if you are finding it difficult, you can think about it. I can reel out many examples where you ask somebody to do a task and they don't do it. Okay, so there's somebody in the family where I've been telling them for several months, please go to State Bank of India and get your what do you call that, e-account operational, that e-banking facility, and it's not done. So I've deployed that resource for that particular task for their own benefit. It doesn't work. Okay, so why? Because of the uncertainties which we talked of in management by design. Uncertainty hits all over the place, and forgetting something is a part and parcel of uncertainty. You may ask, sir, did it happen over several months? Yes, because the person is so much engaged in something else that the person doesn't prioritize this task and actually forgets this task. So the deployment is useless. Okay, sometimes deployment can be counterproductive also, because you deploy a resource for effectiveness. Incidentally, we will talk about this aspect, effectiveness, efficiency, a little later. You have to understand the difference between effectiveness and efficiency. Both are very important. Okay, today I will only state this much. There are 4 basic concerns of any manager. Okay, before I go into uncertainty, I'll state what are these 4 basic concerns. Effectiveness, number 1. Efficiency, number 2. Excellence, number 3. Ethics, number 4. 4 concerns of any sensible manager: effectiveness, efficiency, excellence and ethics. Easy for you to remember, all beginning with E, the alphabet E. Now come back. Uncertainty hits all over the place. So just because you are managing by design, and just because you have identified a resource correctly, mobilized it, allocated it and deployed it, is not a guarantee that the task is going to be performed as you want it. On the contrary, it may not be performed at all, or sometimes the opposite. Okay, I can give you this example which I shared just a couple of days ago or a couple of lectures ago. It's like CSK, Captain Dhoni deployed Jadeja for the last over, and on the other side it was Akshar Patel, I think. Okay, and Akshar Patel took the wind out of Jadeja and won the match. Correct? So deployment of Jadeja as a resource in that instance did not succeed. Some other instances Jadeja was very successful. So I'm making this point only for you to understand that there are no guarantees that just because you deploy a resource, the task will be performed. So what is the last step? Step 4 in management by design. Very simple. Manage uncertainty. So how do you manage uncertainty? Go back to step 1. In a micro level, restate what you want to do, why you want to do, how you want to do at a micro level, and identify and mobilize resources, allocate and deploy resources, and the loop is done. The loop of management is done. Are we clear? Are the 4 steps in management by design clear to you?
Yes, sir.
State what you want to do, why you want to do, how you want to do. Identify and mobilize resources. Allocate and deploy resources. Manage uncertainty and change. Change happens. And I always share with my friends and students the universal law, the law of the universe, the most fundamental law of the universe, according to me, is the law of change. Everything changes, including the law of change and how it operates. Okay, now that's quite intriguing, but that's been my observation. Even the way change changes. I hope you got it. Okay, so there are very interesting things that happen. So now I hope you've understood management by design and the 4 steps in management by design, and I hope you are able to understand the joy of managing. It's a big excitement. And remember, uncertainty is a guarantor of excitement, whereas certainty guarantees comfort. And good or bad, we need both. We need the excitement of uncertainty and the comfort of certainty concurrently. And that's where human beings are strange. Okay, so I think we can close today's lecture. Thank you very much, and bye. We'll meet tomorrow morning, 9 o'clock.